Hello and welcome. I see we have 10 people who just joined us. Yay! Sorry, I was having a little technical difficulty. Long story. We won't get into it, but basically, I think I have it figured out. So, I'm kind of doing some admin stuff right now, trying to get things set up and make sure everything's okay. You should be able to type into a chat box on your right if you have questions all queued up for me that you would like to ask and you didn't send me an email. Please go ahead and queue them up. I do have a few questions about the FAFSA from Ann Z and Lisa H. So if you're here live, great. I'm glad to have you, but I already have your questions in the queue. So if you do have a question, you can copy and paste it. Go ahead and write it in. I'm going to do a little typing in here to say hi. So if you want to go ahead and type in there, say hello, who you are, where you're from, and I'm curious, of course, to know what grade your students are in and how you found out about us. So give a little brief intro over there in the chat box, and I'll keep an eye on that. Going to get things set up, and away we go. So we do have, as I said, a couple of questions from emails, and I'm waiting on one from Facebook because somebody mentioned that they had sent me one, but I don't see it. So I'm hoping that she'll see that and post, but she wasn't going to be able to make it live. So I do wonder if we'll get that one coming through. So anyway, hopefully we will get this show on the road here in the next few moments here. So let me go ahead. Alrighty, so group chat going. And, oh. If you guys can see me or hear me, I would love it if you could type into the chat. And if you don't see the chat, this is the problem with new systems. And I'm dealing with like 8 new systems right now. So let me see if I can open this up. I do apologize. I'm trying to get this fixed. I did a little trial run and everything seemed to go so well. So I guess this is sort of just part and parcel of doing business online these days. So let's go ahead. I see Preeti. Hello, Preeti. Welcome. I am so glad I can see you're typing hello. So yes, everybody can go ahead and type their questions in. If you can see where Preeti said hello. Great. Wonderful. Hey, Derek. Alrighty. So if you guys want to go ahead and type in any questions you have, I'm going to get started with some of the questions that we had on the FAFSA side, and then I'll catch up with everybody who's in here in the chat. But before we get started there, I have a little cautionary tale to tell. So I recently got very excited when I was on Amazon doing my usual search for ACT prep materials. I'm always looking for some of the newer published books. I always want to see what my fellow prep people are pushing out. I also like to see what the official test maker has put out. And while I've had it on their authority for many, many months now, almost a year, that their very outdated 3rd edition book was going to be updated next summer. Even though in September they released a new essay, I was stunned, shocked, amazed to see that they were publishing a new book in January of 2016. I thought, hallelujah, they have taken the initiative. They have decided to push their book live earlier rather than later. Now, there were some red flags. I noticed it was a new publisher, which I was like, okay, who cares? But I also noticed that it was the third edition. And unfortunately, the third edition, what has been out since 2011, was exactly the same book I thought possibly that would be coming out. But I thought for sure, no, they will do some updates. They will at least update the essay prompts. They will at least update some of the reading and the science to reflect what we're seeing nowadays. Well, unfortunately, that's not what happened. This book, I was so excited. It came in the mail. It was nice and shiny, an Amazon Prime box. I was like, yes, I got a new book. And I opened it up, and it's exactly the same. So those red flags were absolutely warranted. So this is a cautionary tale. If you are looking to buy this book, do not buy it. Hold on, I have to duck down here because I put it away after tutoring today. Don't buy it if you already have this book. They're exactly the same. All right. So cautionary tale, don't waste your money. There was much wailing and gnashing of teeth over here. My poor pets were a little bit terrified. But that's something that I would definitely warn you about, that with the ACT, we're having some trouble with the materials that we're getting from them. So just be aware and know that either book is frankly equally outdated, but that's okay. There's other stuff out there that we can use and leverage to still prepare for test day. So I'm kicking us off with a cautionary tale. Now, what I would love for these sessions is for all of us to come together once a month just to touch base, and I can be here as a resource to you to answer any questions that you may have. I know how daunting the college admissions process is, and I know because when I'm hosting the College Checklist podcast, I'm doing it from the perspective of someone who doesn't know a ton about particular niches of that world. But what's happened over the past 2 years is that I have gained knowledge from all of our amazing, wonderful guests. So while test prep is kind of my corner of the world, I also have a lot of resources in a much broader area of expertise. So I have surface knowledge, of course, of all those things, and then the deep knowledge that comes from being an expert in those different pools. Well, I don't have that. I can certainly tell you where to go to get the right information. So I think this is kind of a nice meeting place for all of us to come together. You can ask your questions and I can answer them to the best of my ability, and then tell you who else in this community, which it absolutely is a community, can help serve you as you move forward in your college admissions process. So let's go ahead and dive in. As I said, if you have questions, go ahead and type your questions here. I'm just going to add it in here so it'll pop up and you can see it. So go ahead and type your questions in the chat. If you're having a hard time accessing that, I'm kind of wondering, because I'm seeing some highs come through, which is awesome. Hello, hello. But if you do have any questions and you're unable to get in there, you can go over to my Facebook page. I'll keep an eye on that. And I saw a couple of things come through here. I'll kind of keep an eye on that over on the Facebook page. So if you go to Facebook, search higherscorestestprep.com, you'll see a post about today's meeting. You can just type it as a comment there. I think that's probably easiest. I'm also going to keep my email open, but that's just because I'm a crazy person. So I'm managing all of this and answering questions. It's going to be a wild ride, guys. So as I mentioned, I do have a couple of questions that came in by email today about the FAFSA. Now, I just recently recorded a brand new episode of the College Checklist podcast, and that episode was with Jodi Okun. And Jodi is an amazing financial aid advisor. I love her to death. And what we were covering were these changes that are coming to the FAFSA for the juniors this year. So class of 2017 and higher, I guess, 2018, 2019. Yeah, that I guess that's higher. So all you youngins, you're going to be dealing with a different FAFSA situation than what our seniors are this year. And so because of that, I wanted to have her on to cover some of those changes. She did a great job. Episode's not published yet, but it will be soon. However, I did notice this is kind of FAFSA season, so I did notice a lot of questions come through on that. Before I answer them, I am going to say this is not my area of expertise, and I got some really technical questions. So I did the best with the research I could do. But I'm going to direct you to Jodi at collegefinancialaidadvisors.com. She does free 30-minute consultations. So if you do have any questions, you can definitely get in touch with her. I'm going to type it into the chat here for you. I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. So that's Jodi. There's also another gentleman by the name of Brad Baldridge, and he is specifically where did it go? Yes, he is a certified financial planner as well as an expert in college admissions or college financing. So he does what he calls late stage college financing. So if you're looking for someone to talk about it in concert with your retirement plans, things like that, he's a great resource. So I'm going to go ahead and post that in here as well. Alrighty, so Rajiv, I see your question. I will be addressing that in just a moment. We'll get through these FAFSA questions and then I'll get to you. So the first question I had about the FAFSA comes from Ann Z. And Ann, Jodi did answer this as a part of the episode that we recorded, so I can give you a little glimpse into this. She asked, do parents have to register on their own to get their own FAFSA ID or in order to sign up for the FAFSA before submitting? So I think the FAFSA ID that you're referencing, it's technically called the FSA ID, just in case people are trying to Google it. So yes, the bottom line is students and a parent need to have distinct FSA IDs. And this is new to the FAFSA process. So the idea is to make this more secure process and to kind of lock down what information ties to what account. All right, so those FSA IDs do need to be distinct, and you will have to provide some unique identifiers. So things like your social security number, stuff along, I think it was your birth date. The other thing that I think is really important to mention is that everybody has to have their own unique email address. And this is something that I know because when I sign students up to work with me for the SAT and ACT, when we're doing that sign-up process, sometimes parents say, okay, send my student emails, but other parents say, oh, my student doesn't have an email account. What the FAFSA process is migrating to is going to necessitate that every student has an email address. So if you've held off on creating an email address for your student, right now is the time to just set up a Gmail account, make it something that will stick with them, you know, not like soccer guy 28. Like you want to make it your name, maybe with a dot or a middle initial. Make it think of it as your official college account, something that's going to stick with you and maybe even become your professional account. Especially with Google being all tied together now with YouTube and everything, having that unified presence and not having 83 emails is becoming a bigger deal in today's world. So it's important to have that sort of go-to business account. And I think a Gmail account free is a very nice way to go. So I will include a link if you're a part of a divorced parent situation or separation or anything of that nature, where you might have something, you know, a little more specialized situation. They have guidance as to which parent should be the one with the FSA ID. So that information is on studentaid.ed.gov, which is the official government website. So I would go there, do a little homework and figure it out. Or as I said before, both Jodi and Brad do free consultations. So please get in touch with one of them and they will be more than happy to help you and certainly far more qualified to help you with the specifics. All right. So that would be my guidance there. So the next are 3 questions from Lisa H, and this is where the technical stuff started to get. I was Googling my brains out, but of course, finding good, solid resources. More than just this guy says. It was a lot from the official websites. So I want to make sure that I'm making that clear up front that I did research on this today. This is not my expertise, so you should run this by Jodi or Brad. However, we had a question about an HSA, a health savings account. And Lisa asked, we have an HSA of which our contribution is deductible on page 1 of the 1040. So if you didn't know this, you do have to do your taxes in order to fill out your FAFSA, or at least have your taxes from the previous year so you can do estimated numbers. And her question was, do we have to enter this on the FAFSA, either in the parent's payment to tax-deferred pension and retirement savings, or parents' deductible payments to IRA? I don't know what that word is, Kyoga. This is not my arena, guys, or other. Now, this I found really interesting. Your contributions to the HSA are treated as as untaxed income. All right. And so these will appear on line 25 of your 1040. The balance in the account does not count as an asset. So this is only dealing with contributions, and distributions as well would not count as untaxed income as long as they're put towards medical issues and the qualified medical issues. However, you do need to account for all of the contributions. And where I found it in this year's FAFSA was page 7, item 94, line I. So it was the same section that you were referencing with the tax-deferred pensions and retirement savings, which would be like a traditional IRA or 401k. But this is in a separate subset. So I saw it on line I. Again, I had verified that. It did call out health savings accounts specifically, though. So I think you just got to go a little further down on that form. And again, I will put this into the chat, the link to the actual form that I was pulling this from, just so you have access to it. Just a reminder, if you're joining us, I noticed a few more people joined us live. Fantastic. Welcome. If you do have questions, please type them into the chat. I'm going to pull them over and answer them as a part of the presentation today. So if you do have anything, please type it in. Give me as much information as you can. Kind of do it all in one and hit send, and then I'll pull it over and address your question along the way. Lisa's second piece of the equation, second question here was, if she made a contribution to a Roth IRA, which is never deductible on my taxes, do I still have to enter it onto the FAFSA, and if so, where? So I had a really hard time finding information on this. Again, speak with a professional. But the way I came to understand it was that you don't need to report Roth IRA contributions separately because they are after taxes. So the traditional IRA is tax deferred, so you do have to report them. And I found that in item 94 as well on that page 7, that would fall under the tax deferred untaxed income. And I couldn't find it definitively is the problem. And so that's the challenge I was up against. Again, I would contact Jodi or Brad about that specifically, but I just want to reiterate for people, who are considering our assets, is our retirement considered an asset? No, it's not. They can't see the balance, but what they can see are your contributions and your deductions in a tax year. So if it's the previous tax year, they are going to be interested in that, but anything you've put in before is not on the table. Okay. And then the third bit of question here from Lisa was, is it better to deduct a traditional IRA contribution on my taxes to lower the AGI, that's the adjusted gross income, and have to list it on the FAFSA, or is it better to make but not deduct the Roth IRA contributions so you don't have to add that back into the FAFSA? So again, I'm not an expert. This one I think I would definitely direct to Brad, because he specifically can look at your whole package. And I think this is going to be one of those things that other extenuating circumstances within the family, other, retirement considerations are going to play into this. But from everything I read, it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of another, because with the traditional IRA, yes, it lowers your adjusted gross income. And on the FAFSA, it ends up looking lower. And that's on your form. But when the colleges look at it, they add it back in. So really, it's kind of net gain zero. I think there may be extenuating circumstances. So again, I would contact Brad for sure. Alrighty. So those were our FAFSA questions. I just saw another one come through, so I'll definitely talk to you guys about the FAFSA versus the CSS. But before we do, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here and answer Rajiv's question. Now, Rajiv is on the call with us. So if you are on the call and you have questions, please get them in the box. Ask away. I'm happy to help. We've got the new SAT coming around the corner. I'm happy to talk about that, as well as, of course, anything about your college search, that sort of thing. I do know we're sort of in the season of financial aid, though, so definitely we'll talk about that. Alrighty. So Rajiv asked, for students in the top 1% in the PSAT last October, will they be required to give the new SAT in fall in order to qualify for the National Merit Finalist? This is a fantastic question. So the way, if you're unfamiliar with the way the PSAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test works, that's a mouthful. The way it works is students go in, and they can take it at other times, but the time that it counts is their October test date of their junior year. And when they step into that test room and they take that test, what their results are determines whether or not they are recognized by the National Merit Scholarship Corporation. Now, National Merit Awards, you can be recognized. About 50,000 students are recognized every year out of the 1.5 million that take the test. So if you're in the recognized, you could fall into one of two categories. You're either a semifinalist or you are a commended student. The challenge is the timing on this, because you get your scores back in December, but you really don't hear whether or not I think it's in September or October of your senior year, you find out whether you're commended or you're a semifinalist. And so the timing on it is tough, because a lot of students don't realize that if they tested really well, that they could be eligible for scholarships. There's sort of that unknown of, will I be a semifinalist, which means I can continue on, which, if memory serves, is about 16,000 students out of the 50 who are recognized. So am I going to be part of the small pool and be able to progress on, or will I be part of the large pool? So there's that sort of unknown element. But a lot of students still don't realize beyond that, even if they are in the small pool, what they have to do is verify their performance on an actual SAT. And that test can be taken, again, if memory serves, between, I think it's like December of your sophomore year and December of your senior year. So you have a really wide swath. And the weird part is that you can verify your PSAT scores before you take the PSAT that counts. I think that's the strangest part. The fact that you can verify your scores with a test in your sophomore year for the test you take in the future, it's a little like it's Back to the Future a little bit. So it doesn't seem like the order makes any sense, because it doesn't. And there's really bad information floating around out there. And also, I'm going to be really honest, it's a little bit of a crapshoot, all right? Because you are already writing on a lot of unknowns. And then to whittle down to the finalists, nobody really knows exactly what National Merit Scholarship Corporation uses to determine that. So because of that, it's just got this whole like mystical thing around it. So Rajiv, bottom line is that your student, if they are the class of 2017, if they're this year's juniors, and that PSAT that they took last October was in the 1%, there's a high probability that they will be selected as a commended student. Top 1%, very high. So if you want to hedge your bets, if you want to make sure all your bases are covered in the eventuality you become a semifinalist and want to apply for finalist status, then yes, you will need an official SAT score to validate or verify your PSAT performance. However, this year, because the new SAT is coming in March, which I am advising every student to avoid, period. We'll talk about more about that in a minute. But because it's coming in March and because you can verify your scores back in your sophomore year, this year's juniors, class of 2017 only, because poor little guinea pigs, that's what they are this year, they can verify using old SAT, old 2400 scores, or new scores on this new 1600 scale that's rolling out in March of 2016. Really confusing, right? And again, because it's sort of unknown, because we don't really know exactly what they're going to be looking for. Is it just percentiles? Because now the writing test is sort of with the reading, and we don't know is sort of the bottom line. And we never know, but we really don't know this year. And it's been a real big challenge to advise students. I will also say, and this is, I don't want you to misunderstand me. I understand what College Board is facing this year with this huge transition. And this is fully hearsay. I'm in a few groups with college admissions consultants and independent counselors and in-school counselors. And there's speculation that the scores may be inflated this year from the PSAT. I can't speak to it. I know I have some amazing students who did really well. That's all I know. And when I'm reading these notes about how they're looking at the student's background and they're going, I don't understand how this student got this percentile score. They've got a much wider breadth of students to draw from, and certainly a larger breadth of experience in terms of the sheer number of scores that they get every year. So with that said, I don't want to say don't go for it, but I do want there to be an understanding that this is a consideration. This is a concern that is being put forth by the community. I don't know if there's any validity to it. I really don't. I can't speak to that because I'm not inside any of these organizations and I don't have enough data to pull from. But that is something that's out there right now and is being discussed. So, if you're going to go for it, great. I would hold off on taking that SAT. I'll share with you why towards the end of the session today. All righty. So let me just mark this answered. Okay, so I'm getting the hang of this, guys. I'm seeing we have a few more people who have joined us. So if you do have a question, go ahead and type it into the chat. I've got 3 from Preeti, and they're all FAFSA. I told you, season of the FAFSA. We're just in federal application for financial student aid here. Free application for federal student aid. Sorry. So let's see. Preeti asks, she'd like to know the difference between the FAFSA and the CSS. Okay, so the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid that is a government form. It draws from your taxes, you fill it out, and every college looks at that to determine need-based aid. All right, so any college you're applying to, you should fill out the FAFSA. Absolutely. So if I were to say one over the other, I'd say focus on the FAFSA first, but the CSS is a College Board product that is very similar. They ask some different questions, but some schools want the CSS as well. Tends to be private schools, and Jodi gave me the number of colleges that use it. And I think she said it was like 500, 800 nationally that do pull from the CSS profile as well. So you've got to do a little research because you've got to go through all the colleges that you applied to and see what they want. All of them are going to want FAFSA, so you just, matter of course, you need to get that done. But the CSS profile, you may also need that in addition. pulls from the same kinds of information, probably some different kinds of questions on there as well. But you're going to want to fill them both out if they're required by a school so that you can get need-based aid. Okay. Preeti, I do not believe there's a limit to the number of colleges you can fill the FAFSA out for. I do know that one of the shifts that I think was implemented this year or is going to be implemented in the fall of next year, or of this year, I guess, 2016, is that the colleges are no longer going to be able to see the other colleges that you sent it to. So it used to be, I think you had to fill it out and send it 10 at a time, and the 10 colleges who were together could see each other. So I think there was a way to submit it. You know, if you wanted to go through and do it 10 times, you could do that. Or if you're applying to 12 schools, obviously you got to do it a second time. I don't think there's a limit to how many you can send, but now you can send it in one shot and the schools aren't going to see each other. So that's my understanding of the FAFSA, because you can apply to as many schools as you want. So the FAFSA is required at every, not required, but it's advised for every college, especially if you're looking to get merit aid or need-based aid. So you do want to fill that out for sure. Again, Jodi's on Twitter, and she's super active on Twitter, just at Jodi Okun. I'm going to actually put it here. If you just tweet at her, she is going to answer you. She's amazing. So, and you can type these in and you'll get a response quickly, I would imagine. So she's on it. She'd be able to give you the specifics there. Excuse me. So Preeti also asked, how do we decide which college to choose to add to the list of FAFSA? So Preeti, it's the colleges that you applied to. I am really sorry. I have something in my eye. Oh my goodness. Oh, wow, that really hurts. It's going to be all red and gross. Sorry about that. So Preeti, how do we decide which colleges to choose to add to the list? It's the colleges you're applying to that you want financial aid from. Don't send it to schools you didn't apply to, but yeah, any colleges that you are going to apply to, that's where you need to send it. So that will be the way to go there. So lastly, if you guys have any questions, of course, I'm here for the next 25 minutes if you need me. I do want to talk a little bit about the new SAT though, because I think this is something, I see that there's 15 of you on the call. I'm excited to have you here because I really need you all to hear this and help me spread the word. The new SAT is a bad deal for kids any way you slice it. All right? Right away, anyway. I don't know what actually seeing it in the test room will do for me. I have a feeling that when I see it on test day, I'm going to feel really strongly that it's a test that should be a part of the conversation, or it should just not be a part of the conversation at all anymore. I think I'm going to fall on one of those two camps. But here's the thing. I'm taking it in March. And yes, I still do take these tests. I go in and take them regularly, once or twice a year, to make sure that I'm tapped in to the content that my students are seeing. You know, the reason I can tell you this book stinks is because I've gone in, I have full-length tests that I've taken that don't line up at all with this anymore. It's old and it's outdated. Because I have that knowledge, I can caution my students about it. And that's what I love to do, is give them that edge on test day. So I'm going to go take that new SAT and I will report back, because I feel like I can be a guinea pig. This stuff doesn't matter for me in terms of like it affects my future. It doesn't. You know, I can go in and take it. It's low pressure, that sort of thing. And I can relax through it and really understand what's going on underneath. There's so many unknowns on this new exam. We have no idea if the practice materials are going to match what's on the test on test day. We also have no idea what the actual scores are going to be. You might be hearing that saying, what are you talking about? The reason we don't know what the scores are going to be is because the SAT and the ACT are both curved exams. And until an actual test is administered, everything is guesswork. So there is an estimated curve available online, but because I teach score-specific strategies, I can't advise a student, hey, answer X amount of questions to get your target score, because we just don't have that data. So that's why I'm advising students to hold off. I think it's too much of a gamble. And frankly, I think it's going to be a harder test. There's 2 math sections, one of which is without a calculator. I already know that's a huge problem for a lot of kiddos. It's a problem for me some days. So I want to make sure that students are fully prepared for what they're going to see, so there is no surprise, right? So that's my goal, to just keep students from hurting themselves. Now, some schools are giving free versions of this test. I don't necessarily think you should opt out of that. I would just do it in a totally low pressure way and prepare for the ACT and take the ACT too, because I just don't want to put all my eggs in this basket that could have a bunch of holes in it. I don't know. I can't say that with any certainty, but it's a possibility. And frankly, we saw how many headaches the ACT's shifting the essay made for students who took it in September of this past year of 2015. One section changed, and that was a nightmare. I mean, you should have seen the comments on ACT's Facebook page. Parents were raging, and rightfully so. But one section changed, and frankly, not the most important section on that test. The SAT, 5 sections, completely revamped. There's big question marks out there as to how that's going to go. I'm nervous for myself, but I don't want to have to be nervous for students too. So I would encourage you guys to just avoid it and stick with the ACT for the time being. Great. I see some other questions coming through. Preeti, just as a follow-up to your question, no, there is no charge. It's a free application for federal student aid. So there's no charge to send that. The CSS profile, you do pay though. So that's something to be aware of. Alrighty, so Joyce, hello. You're always here. I love it. I love seeing you. Alrighty, so you had a question about early action versus early decision. Once you get your letter of acceptance, do you need to respond immediately in order to get the best financial aid, or can you wait until May to make your final decision? That is a fantastic question. As I understand it, and this is the other thing, these policies may change, they may shift school to school. So you just really need to make sure you're not just reading what is early action and early decision, because what it is at one school is going to look different than at another school. So you do want to make sure that you are paying attention to the nuances. Spreadsheets are your best friend through this entire process. Like, I live and die by the Excel, right? So I believe that the early action and early decision, first of all, early action means you have an option. Early decision means you've committed to going there. So if they accept you, you're in, you're going. So that's something that, this becomes a moot point at that point. If you have many early action acceptances, my understanding is you do have to accept them sooner rather than later. I could be wrong on that front. It's been a long time. And that's actually something that's not really come up on the show. So I'm actually going to make a note, I'll do it after, to dive into that with somebody, just so you have that information on the podcast as well. I'll also follow up with an email with you, Joyce, just to make sure I get the best information to you right away. But to get financial aid, and this kind of comes down to the FAFSA as well, to get financial aid, you want to be the first person in the pool. And that doesn't mean that like they're doing it as stuff comes through, but there is a date when they open the gates and they look at everything that's in there already, right? So you want to make sure that you have all your information, also because it allows them to make sure that they send you, hey, we don't have this form that we needed, or hey, we don't have that thing that we needed. So the earlier you get it in, the more lead time you have to play catch up. But as I understand it, the gates open at the same time. And so people will get their information on the financial aid packages sooner rather than later. And they may all go out at the same time. Again, I think that might be a school by school thing. But yeah, I'll follow up with you if I can find some good information and maybe tap some of my financial aid guru people to get me some more information on that, because that's a fantastic question. Alrighty. And Joe, you asked, my son's school wants all college applications and financial aid information by October 1st of this year. As a junior this year, he can wait to take the ACT or the SAT. I suppose so. So not a question, but some schools, yeah, some schools are this. There's one thing that I would love. It is and the Common App's getting us closer, but it is a unified approach to the application process. Because right now, I mean, there's so many traps that you can fall into. You just don't even know you're missing stuff. So the first step, I think, is to really back up and make sure that you are doing your research and getting your college search locked down sooner rather than later, because that's going to guide the rest of the process. So Joe, I'm assuming that your son, he's a junior this year. Oh, it was a question. I'm sorry. I totally missed that. Sorry, you said as a junior this year, can he wait to take the SAT? All right, so let me back up, Joe, and answer your question properly. I'm so sorry. So you said my son's school wants all college applications and financial aid information by October 1st of this year. As a junior, can he wait to take the SAT? I would say no. And here would be my question. Why wait? I really love, oh, no problem, Joe. It's totally me. I'm going too fast. So as a junior this year, I would encourage him to take the ACT, avoid the SAT, unless he has to take the SAT. And frankly, I've not heard of any programs where you have to. Right now in the US, you can take the SAT or the ACT in nearly every situation. Now, maybe there's some sort of specialized program that prefers one to the other. I know that schools like MIT and Cal Poly SLO, schools with kind of an engineering bent, tend to like the ACT. They prefer it. You can opt to say, I don't care that you prefer it, I'm taking the SAT. But that's where the preference lies. And I've not seen the opposite as true. So historically, the tests have been regional. The ACT's been Midwest and the SAT's been the coast. And then it started to become this thing where if as we became more open to moving and going far away for college, that students would now have to take both tests because they wanted to apply to, this school here in Chicago, but they also wanted to apply to that school out in Massachusetts. So they needed the ACT and the SAT. And then roundabout, I think it was like 2000, somewhere in that range, they said, this is madness. Kids are going cross country. So we're just going to say we take either or. And that has been the standard. They may add subject exams on top of it. You may also need SAT subject exams as a part of your application, which is only an SAT test. But other than that, the two main guys, you could take either. So I would encourage you to consider the ACT, mostly because, again, the changes to the SAT are dramatic. And frankly, I think they make the test harder. I think the verbal sections on the SAT and ACT are now basically the same for all intents and purposes. You have a little more time on the SAT, but not so much as to make it like the reason to take that test. The two math sections, one without a calculator, and then the essay on the new SAT, those three sections, to me, put the ACT in the front running as clearly a more simple, straightforward exam, even with the science. So let me dispel a little myth here. Science is not about knowing outside science. So it's not really about your skills in science. It's about, can you read a chart and interpret data, which, frankly, if you're good at math, you probably have those sort of innate skills to do that sort of work. Now, you have to layer in scientific thought and make sure that you're thinking logically. But, I hear that sometimes as a reason not to take the ACT, and it's a misconception. So it's not like you're going to be studying all branches of science just to make sure you can do well on that test. Absolutely not. There's maybe one question that requires outside knowledge, and it's always a total grab bag. You have no idea what's coming or what branch of science, and it's 1 point. So 39 points come from the student's ability to interpret charts and data that's presented on the page. So that would be my recommendation, that he look to the ACT, look to get his scores before June. That, to me, juniors need real official results back so that their college search can be done really well and based on facts. Or they can go, oh boy, I have the summer, I can brush up those scores, because most people are surprised by those first iterations. So I'm happy, Joe, to talk to you more about that if you want some advice on sort of next steps. I do have courses online that range from a 1-week course to a 12-week course, and everything in between. It really fits all budgets. So it's something that I would love to share with you. And there are free resources as well that can help. So if you are interested in that, just let me know, shoot me an email, and we'll talk. Alrighty, and I see Joyce. All right, so Joyce asks, what's the best option for an academic athlete who wants to be recruited, yet only have had friendly email exchanges with coaches? Early action seems better over early decision, since no coach has made a verbal commitment or stated any strong interest. Yeah, Joyce, I think, my pleasure, Joe. Joyce, I really think, when you have the academic athlete, and I know you've listened, but my husband was that athlete, and he came on and discussed his recruiting process, which was admittedly started very late, but because he, and I know your daughter, and I know the caliber of student that she is, I think any program would be happy to have her because she's got both sides. So the colleges, coaches, their hands are very tied as to what they can say and when they can say it. So I think that it's really important that you continue those friendly conversations. Don't ask for specifics. I've heard, I don't know if you want to go this route, but I've heard that calling and having something that's off the record as opposed to sending emails can be a little bit more productive. You can get a better sense of what's going on and the way that she should proceed. If she has a particular school that she is just in love with, the program seems perfect, I would encourage you to just make that known and then ask, is there a preferred way for me to apply so that I can, so we can make this work, since it is my number one choice. I do agree, though, that, the challenge with early decision is that no matter the financial aid that is offered to you, you're still technically committed. Now, I've heard you can bow out if there's academic considerations, but at that point, you were early decision, so you probably don't have any prospects anywhere else. Otherwise, you were playing both sides of that decision coin, which is not advised. So, you really, I think, especially for high school students, I mean, I say this all the time on the show. I applied to NYU like total, 11th hour. I happened to have all the criteria I needed, so I could, and I did, and it's where I ended up going. So, we're talking about seniors in high school. They don't necessarily aren't 100% sure of where they want to go. And so I think allowing a little latitude for that is very smart. And I think, you could love a program on paper, but until you take that recruiting trip, and I believe Michael did his in the fall. I want to say it was like November or something. Until you do that and you sit with the team and you see that dynamic, until you've done that, it can change everything. I mean, on paper, I think Michael was pretty committed to Boston College, and the second he set foot on Georgetown's campus, he was like, "This is it." And I don't know exactly what it was, and I think it's probably one of those things that you just sort of know. So I would agree. Keep faith. I know it's hard when coaches can't say like, we really love you, but if they're doing everything by the book and there's a rule for everything at NCAA, they are they're not allowed to show a lot of interest. So I would keep faith in the fact that what she's doing is correct. Just keep doing her thing, and I think that's going to help her down the line. So, yeah, I really do think that's probably they're probably more interested than they're letting on, because I know her and she's amazing, and any school would be lucky to have her. So, yeah, I think that I would just stay strong. She's going to end up in college. She's going to end up at a good place, but I agree with you about the early decision. I wouldn't push it there. I'm going to check over here on my Facebook page just to make sure that I didn't get, yeah, I apologize, but I'm not going to get to your question, Michelle. Email me. It didn't come through, and I apologize for that. Oh, good. I have another question from Bethany. So Bethany, you've got a daughter. She's been studying with Khan Academy. She hasn't done any ACT study. Do you still recommend only ACT? Can students take both? Yes. Okay. So yeah, and that's something that's totally a new player on the scene. Khan Academy has put out a free SAT prep course in conjunction with College Board, which sounds awesome, and I really hope it is. I have not had a chance to get in there and do my due diligence. I think on the academic side, it's probably fantastic. The way I teach this, though, it's very strategy heavy. And I just don't see College Board saying, okay, Khan Academy, teach people how to hack your test, which is sort of my approach. So in that sense, I think that the academics are probably fine, because Khan has an amazing name. And has such a reputation in the community. And as a free resource, hey, let's take advantage of that for sure. What she's done on the SAT from an academic standpoint will apply to the ACT. Strategies are going to be very similar. I think in the verbal sections, if she's feeling comfortable in scoring high, she'll have no problem. I think the hitch and the giddy up is going to be on the ACT science section. That is a section that when I go back and look at my old scores, I just shake my head, because I didn't do any prep. I bombed it because I had no idea what I was expected to do. And I had my SAT score and I was kind of done. I had a counselor who said, you have to go take this test. And I said, okay, I'll take it once. And I got my 31 and I got out. But my average would have been really a lot higher had I known what to expect on that science section. Can she do that on her own? Sure. There are free tests available online. And I'm going to actually type in, I have a page. Let me type this in and then I'll talk, because I can't do both at the same time. All right. So higherscorestestprep.com/15 free. There you can find free practice tests. If she prints out those 2 free ACT practice tests, takes them, feels comfortable, confident, cool, right? I would definitely say that would be the way to go before sending her in to take it, cold, let's say. I do not like students taking tests that they've never seen before, especially because this is the only test that you can actually earn thousands of dollars for your score. It doesn't make sense that it's then the only test we don't study for. So it sounds like you're of like mind since she's doing the prep. When it comes to me recommending only ACT, if she's going to do the SAT, I would ask or recommend that you wait until May or June. I think there's just, it's unknown for everybody, and that includes the proctors. And I have to say that when I have a bad proctor, it totally changes the dynamic of my test day. And by bad, I mean unprepared. And how could you be prepared when it's the first time you're doing it, and it's teachers volunteering to get up, on a Saturday morning, they're probably showing up and getting the information, and they're going to read through it. So I had a bad experience on my last ACT. Again, a known exam, nothing new. But there were a couple of things that went haywire that I was like, oh my gosh, this shouldn't happen. But that energy can affect a student. So that's another consideration on that side. If you wanted to, you could have her take the April ACT and then the May SAT. I think that's a nice flow, not too far apart, so that she forgets everything she prepared with, and has enough time to bridge the gap between the two. You can take both. And I used to recommend that students take both because I was so SAT girl in high school, like verbal skills on point, math, science, not my strong suit, I thought, right? But then when you look at the percentiles, my ACT percentiles are actually a little bit higher. So I used to advise that students take both because they were such distinct tests, but now they're so similar. To my mind, and especially in this year of change, just go the path of less stress. That's sort of what I'm thinking. I do have a course that's coming out shortly that's just strategies. All right. So it's none of the content that she's already been doing. So it wouldn't, overlap. It's just going to be strategies. It's called Quick Prep. So that might be something that's a little more reasonable for her. It's not the full-blown 12-week course. It takes more like 10 study days to work through. So, I would give it 3 to 5 weeks, but that might be something to layer on top of what she's doing with Khan Academy to sort of help give her that leg up and that understanding of the ACT. And those practice tests are sort of built into the curriculum as well. So if that's something you're interested in, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. I see another question here from Shreya. Just joined. All right. So Shreya, you asked how many times to take the SAT and what's the best way to prepare. So SAT, ACT, my advice is the same. And I would encourage you not to take the SAT this year until the fall of 2016 at the earliest. That's just what I'm recommending. I actually found another test prep provider bigger than me, much bigger. They have like a whole team. They're in many cities, and they're doing the exact same thing. They shut down their entire SAT prep. They're having a number of their instructors go and take the test in March, and then they're going to open it up in fall. When I saw that, I was like cheering because it means that there's so many more kids who are getting good information about this. So that would be my advice. Steer clear of it until fall of 2016 if you possibly can. And then how many times to take it, this translates to both exams. But of course, the gates don't open on the new SAT until fall. But I recommend that students take 2 back-to-back test dates. And the reason I recommend that is because I assume, as a test prep provider, that you're preparing, right? So you're going to take 1 month, 2 months ahead of your first test date to prepare. All right, you're going to buy books, you're going to work with a course, you're going to hire a tutor, you're going to do something. There's Khan Academy, of course, for the SAT. You're going to do something to get yourself ready, and you're going to go and you're going to head into that first test. And once you take that test, you want to have a little security blanket while you're on the test because it's going to be nerve-wracking because now it's real. And then you also want to have an opportunity to take it again before you forget everything you just spent a month, 2 months learning. Testing is very specialized. This isn't something that most students, and I've certainly worked with some for whom it was the case that they could do this, but most students don't just walk in, get their score, and walk out. Like that's just not the way it goes. So you want to have a second opportunity. Again, there's thousands of dollars in this test. You should take advantage of that. And in order to do that, you want to get your scores as high as you possibly can. So 2 back-to-back test dates. So if you're taking the February ACT, I'd just go ahead and sign up for April. If you're taking the April ACT, go ahead and sign up for June as well. Gives you 2 clear shots at that score that you're looking for. And I like students to do that before the end of their junior year. I think junior year, summer, you need to have real numbers because that's when you're finalizing your college search. And if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I can get a 36, no problem. And then you go and you take it and you base all of your colleges off of the fact that your perfect 36 is in your head, and then you go and you take it and you don't get that 36, that very elusive 36, often students aren't happy with their first results. So I encourage you to have reality staring you in the face before you start making firm plans for the summer and starting to write your essays and apply to schools. Don't do that based on what you think you can do. Do it based on reality. And if along the way you go, you know what? I've got this score. Let's say you got a 26. I've got this score. But at this school that I'm really excited about, a 27 gets me $10,000 a year in scholarship money. Potentially. I got to apply, but that's a scholarship I really want. Now you have a little more incentive to maybe go take some more prep, do a little work, go ahead and dive in and take it again and get that 27, which now translates into those thousands of dollars. So to me, that's the plan. I want 2 back-to-back with an option for a third in my senior year. Maybe you go 4. That's totally fine. I wouldn't aim to go any higher than that. If you need a 5th, because that like one more point, that means money potentially. But I really like the 2 back-to-backs and then taking a break, because it really gives you a chance to reflect on how you've done and look back on what you've worked on. Okay, so Shreya, you've already signed up for March 5th. You can move that test date. You can contact College Board and say, nope, I'm going to be taking it in June. Or you can decide to brave it. That's absolutely something that I think some families are going to choose to do. I'm putting this out there based on my experience. All right. So I'm putting this out there based on what I've seen go well and what I've seen lately that maybe hasn't gone quite as well. So that's my advice. You could always skip it, move that date, or if you choose, you just want to give it a shot, you certainly can. I know how stressful test day can be. I see the nervous faces around on test day, and I think this is going to add to that. There's not going to be as many students who feel 100% super confident on this one because it's the first one. So, you can choose how you'd like to navigate that. Totally up to you how you choose to do that. Talk to your parents. If you want to talk to me, I'm always happy to chat. My phone number's on the website. And for those of you who are still here, if you want to talk, I'm here. I picked up the phone today because I called somebody back and they were like, oh my gosh, it's you. They listened to the podcast and they were surprised to hear me on the other line. But I mean, you can see my background today, super unclassy. Like, this is my house. This is where I work. This is where the magic happens, right here in the office. And it's myself, my cat, my dog, and my parents, who are in a different location, do the shipping and help with the finances. But we're small. So if you do have a question, I'm here. Alrighty, and I see Joyce asking another question here. When is the best time to take the specific SAT tests? I think you mean subject tests, May or June. May seems too heavy with AP testing, yet June is also heavy with the finals for end of school year. Which is the lesser evil? Oh, Joyce, you're not going to like my answer. So I need to take a sip of water. Sorry, one question. But this is about the SAT subject exams. All right. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, SAT subject exams are required or recommended or not accepted at colleges. And which one it is depends on the college. So most schools who require or recommend it recommend at least 2. Some will take 3. And what they are, you think of them as kind of College Board finals. Ironically, or not so ironically, College Board makes the AP exams and the SAT subject exams. The content is often very similar. So for something like world history, there's a world history AP class. There's also a world history subject exam. U.S. history. English, you've got, it's called literature, but I'll tell you, if you're an AP Lang, you can still do the lit test. It's nothing too far outside the realms of what you'd know if you were in that level of course. There's a lot of science. So you've got, your bio, you've got chem, physics, Lots of different things, languages as well. So if you're a native speaker of another language, it's a great opportunity. They have these subject exams with listening. You can definitely show off your prowess there for sure. So when to take them? I recommend that students take them May and June and take them the exact same tests both days. So they're an hour long and you can take up to 3 in a day. But Joyce, as you pointed out, a lot of students are testing in May for their APs. So what I like to see students do is any AP test they're studying for in their sophomore or junior year, they just, as a matter of course, go and take those 1, 2, 3 SAT subject exams at that testing cycle. So, and I like 2 back-to-back test dates that applies to subject exams as well. So May, June, because they're content-based for the most part, because students are going to already be studying, if you're studying US history for your AP test, go take the subject exam, just get it done, because you're going to be prepared, as opposed to if you try and go in fall and you tell yourself you're going to prepare for it. That usually doesn't go very well unless you're, a US history buff. Math and literature, I would take math 2 if you're going to take a math, and I would take the literature test. Those can float. Those are not necessarily content specific in the same way that a history test or a science test would be. So if you decide that those are on the plate and you don't want to overload your student, you could push those to, you could do them in an off time. The subject exams are not given in March. That's the one SAT test date that doesn't also have subject exams. But the test dates are exactly the same for every other test date. So for 6 dates a year, you would be able to take them. So you could do math and lit together. And I'm really loosey-goosey with subject exams because I think, especially if you're taking APs, colleges are more interested in what you did on your AP tests. To my mind, that would be my guess. I certainly don't have anybody who's said that to me, but I feel people keep talking about how they're going away, and they haven't gone away. So I think their credibility isn't super high because that's been discussed a lot in the community for a very long time. So yeah, I think I would have scores if they're above a 650. I would say you're golden. If you can get in the 700s, that's awesome. But I wouldn't worry too much about it because I think your GPA and your SAT or ACT scores are far more persuasive when it comes to whether or not you should go to a school. These are a little more of like, I checked the box and I did the best I could on them. I don't stress out about them too much. The APs, a different story. IB tests, different story. Those are important. You're spending the whole year working up to those. So I think they take a lot more focus. This is something that's sort of going on in the background because you're already doing it anyway. You might as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Thank you so much, Preeti. I really appreciate that. I was so glad to have you here. And if anybody wants to join again, we're going to be doing this every month. This is kind of my goal for 2016. I want to see if we can get a little community going here. So I'm really excited to have you guys. And thank you so much, Preeti, for coming. Shreya, I see you have another question. So let me take a look here. So Shreya asked, how might taking the optional essay in the SAT increase or benefit your score, and why take a subject test? So Shreya, I always recommend that you take optional essays. So the ACT essay is optional, the SAT essay is optional, and I say you should take it because I think what most students think is, do I want to take an essay? No, it's optional. Great, I won't take it. But really, it's not optional for you. It's optional for a college to recommend it. And if you apply to a college that recommends the essay and you don't have it, you have to go take the test again. So to just bypass having to take the test again, I say take it every time. That way, when you get your picture perfect score, that score you were so gunning for and working hard towards, it'll actually count no matter where you apply. So Optional essay is a little bit of a misnomer, and I recommend that every student take it every time. It doesn't increase your score. It just makes sure that everywhere you want to apply, you can use it. And then the other question was, why take a subject test? Again, that's based on the colleges you're looking to go to. So all of the testing decisions really hinge on your college search. So preliminary college search is very important. So I would use something like College Board's Big Future. Put in what you're looking for in a school and put in your metrics. What's your GPA? What'd you get on the PSAT? And see sort of what lines up with you. You might be surprised. You might go, "Oh, I didn't realize that college existed. Let me look at that a little bit more closely. That program looks interesting." Or you might go, "Wow, I'm surprised at the colleges I'm a good fit for." So, I think doing that research first and then looking at their admissions requirements, that's going to tell you what you need. Not every student needs a subject exam. So, I would say that's really kind of the top tier schools that are looking for it. The more competitive schools are looking for it. Um, if you're not sure, I'm a cover my bases kind of girl. I like to I like to make sure I've got all my I's dotted and all my T's crossed because of my own experience. That's why I was able to go to NYU. It's because I did all the hard work, and then when it came time to add just one more, I just went ahead and added one more. So it wasn't that big of a deal. But if it was the 11th hour. So if I decided last minute I wanted to apply and looked and the requirement said subject exams, well, then I would have been up a creek and I would have been able to apply and I wouldn't have gotten in. And that's not where I would have gone and graduated from. So who's to say that my course was better than what the path I would have ended up on otherwise? But I like to make sure I'm planned, prepared, ready for anything, and then trust that I will end up where I'm supposed to be. And that's the other thing. When I work as hard as I can, and I know that I did the best work I could, and I did everything I possibly could, when I do that, then I can trust that whatever happens is what was supposed to happen. I think where students get most stressed out is when they look at this and they go, "Okay, I'm totally stressed out already. I'm just like going to go into shutdown mode." They don't do the work to get their scores, or they don't do the work that's going to help them move forward. And then after the fact, they don't get in where they want to go. I think that's where the biggest stressor comes from. I believe in just sort of trusting that the colleges will find the right fit students. They're really good at what they do in an admissions office, and you want to go to a school where you're a good fit. So I think that, we kind of have to leave it up to fate a little bit and trust that we're going to end up where we're supposed to be in the whole cosmic swirl of things. So that's my own personal philosophy. I know it can get a little crazy and it's different when it's your journey, but that's what I learned on mine. So I hope that helps you sort of figure out, take some time, do a little research, go visit a college that's local and see what you see and see what feels good and feels right, and notice what doesn't, and find the colleges that are a good fit for you. I'm seeing a little note from Morgana. Thank you so much. Oh, yes, I know. And I'm so glad you're here, and I hope you'll join us again. She said that it's really informative to listen to what other parents are asking. And that's one of the things that I love about this, is that we're going to be able to, have people come in and just watch, just be fly on the wall and learn from the questions for those of you who have them. It's hard to know where to go. One thing I wanted to post, I'm going to include a link. I host a podcast. I'm not sure, how many people in here are familiar with it, but the College Checklist podcast, it's a really kind of non-threatening way to digest all of this information. So, we do specialized topics, and it's easy to sort of go, okay, I want to learn something about financial aid. Boom, I'm going to dive in here. So I have a little PDF guide. I haven't updated it in a little bit. So this will get you started. It's like the first 56 episodes. So if you click there, it's a PDF. You can print it out. It'll direct you to all of the resources that you may need on this journey. And within the shows, there are resources. So it's a really great way to sort of just check in, once a week while you're on the treadmill or whatever. Go for a walk, listen. I'll be in your head, and we'll chat with some people who are the experts on this stuff. As I said at the beginning, the FAFSA, the details, what line goes where. Oh boy, that is so not my thing. But I know people who do it, and I can share that with you. And I love doing that, and I love coming in and learning like you learn. I don't know. I didn't at the beginning know more than most of the parents who are listening, and I think that's why this works, because I'm asking the questions that I would think if I were a parent. Just a fur mama right now. My Chihuahua not going to make it into college, unfortunately. So thank you so much, Joyce. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I love the podcast. It's so fun because I also get the emails afterwards, which is amazing. I get the emails from you guys saying, "Oh, this was awesome," or "Can you do this?" And that's the other thing. If something comes up here, like Joyce, you asked the question about early action, early decision, and financial aid. That tie-in, I never would have thought about that. So now I'm going to go out and find somebody to come on and talk about it. So we'll get that covered for sure before it's time. I'll do that over the summer. I just recorded a whole new batch. I'm really excited to release. But yeah, in the next round, I think I'll have Brad come on and talk about that, because he's the man when it comes to that sort of thing. So anyway, I think that's it for today. I didn't see any other questions roll through, so I hope you found this informative, and I'm really grateful for you being here. If you would do me a favor, and if you enjoyed this and you think that it's helpful to parents, to other parents, I would be so honored if you would help me share and spread the word. Our next meeting, I'm just pulling up the calendar here. It's going to be March 7th. It's the first Monday of the month. I'm going to try and keep it at that 5 p.m. Pacific. I will be taking the new SAT on March 5th. So this will be the grand reveal. And I can't talk specifically about what I've seen, but I can share my thoughts on how we'll move forward. So help me spread the word. If you come on over to Facebook, that's really the best way to connect. If you're not connected with me there, that's a really fun way to chat. I'm on my page all the time, sharing good content and getting in touch with you. If you have questions, you can post them. So come on over. It's facebook.com/higher scores. And we'll connect there. And of course, if you need help with test prep, I'm your gal. I have ACT courses that range from a 1-week course for $37 to a 3 to 5 week course at $147, all the way up to a $400 course that's a 12-week fully comprehensive. That's what Joyce's daughter has gone through twice. She did SAT and ACT. So we've got all of that in the mix, and I'm happy to help you in any way that I can. So don't be a stranger. Let's be friends on Facebook. Come on over to the page. Let's connect. And I'm just so grateful that you were here for this first round of the monthly meetings, the monthly live Q&As. Please help me spread the word so we can get more people here, make this free resource as powerful as possible. And I'll start thinking too about potentially bringing on some guests. I would love to do that so that we can have that conversation and maybe do some specialized topics in the future. So, but next time we'll definitely be talking SAT and ACT and any other questions that you'd like to discuss. So thanks again for being here. I'm grateful for you, and I will see you guys next month.